So I was born in Riverside, California. Lived there all of my life, basically, until I joined the Army. I had a modest childhood, but my parents were hardworking people. Dad was a soldier, and so he did 26 plus years in the military. So we were raised, to be, to be very respectful of people. My dad, I affectionately call him Sarge, and my mom were, very engaged. I describe my mother as a mother that had both feet in there all the time. So great childhood though, and my parents were hard workers. So I always try to work hard. I mean, um, and they were the types of parents. What I took away from them is that treat people how you want to be treated, and always be honest in all of your dealings, because it's going to come back on you if you're not. And always give people grace, because someday you may need grace. So those were the things that I took from my parents, and each one of them had a different style of how they delivered advice or discipline. But I think I profited from both of those, both of their differing degrees of how you should conduct yourself. So, the siblings, because there was sort of like a set of four older siblings, and then there was a set of the second four siblings. And between me and my oldest sister, there is 16 years difference. Mm-hmm. So having siblings that are that that much senior to you, it was almost like having an assistant parent at many times, because then I was able to watch them and see what they did, see what some of their fallings were, and then I just stayed away from those. And they were really good at developing. Each one of my older siblings, I got something different from. My sister Phyllis, I always saw her as a hard worker, and she did everything she could to encourage all of us. Um, my sister Rose, she literally took me aside and said, when I was like 17 years old, hey, you need to go to a department store and apply for a credit card, because you're going to need credit someday, and you're gonna need that. And then my second older brother, which is Ken, my oldest brother Robert passed, but Ken, what he brought to me was so many things. I mean, he was really, to me, a life coach, and still is, because there are things that I go to him for advice. And so he was very pivotal in my teen years to my early 20s, because those were trying times. I was going to school and in college, and then working, and then eventually got married and had a baby, and young marriage. And so that was he was just so pivotal in assisting me, and keeping me from not being keeping me from not being unsuccessful, I guess, is a way to put it. And then my sister Michelle, which is the sibling that is the one that's closest to me going up. And so she's just unique. She and I had this bond that is just a unique bond, and it still lasts today. So I mimicked her. The only thing that I wasn't fortunate about is that she holds a doctorate. She's a very smart. She was always that way, and she was gifted all going through school. And so I had the misfortune of following her, and I think all of the teachers kind of just presumed that I was either lazy or mentally challenged, because I didn't have the gift of brain that she had. And then my sister that's right under me, Kim, and I always got along. We went to school together, and there isn't anything, even to this day, that she wouldn't do for me. And then finally, my younger brother, Christopher, what he brings to the table now is he and I are like friends. And when growing up, he's 5 years younger. I mean, I went between, torturing him, and I think he sometimes tortured me. And but the brothers that we have grown to be together, and the discussions that we have, and the kinship that we have, is just fantastic. And I never would have saw that coming, maybe 35, 40 years ago, but it is here now. And I feel a closeness to him. So yeah. Each one of my siblings brought something to the table for me. And the thing that I always think about when I think about my siblings, and this is a sentence, I mean, basically, there are times that we all want to kill each other, but we will always kill for each other. So that's the thing. So I always tell people, don't get that thing twisted, because if anybody messes with any of us, they're going to have the wrath of all the others. Well, my favorite childhood memory was that my parents were very playful, so it wasn't unusual to be acting out wrestling scenes on the floor, or just going for a drive and get ice cream. And my parents were kind of like, and I don't know how we lived, because no seatbelts in cars then, and my parents were like the kind of parents that sometimes they'd pull up and my dad would want to drag race somebody, and so that was unique. And to have all of us piled up in that car, now that I think back, I'm like, boy, there was like sometimes 6 or 7 of us piled up in the back seat, and everybody lived. Yeah. I always wanted to be a soldier, but really, directly out of college, I was a police officer for many years. And then I came to a point in life where I really had just been burning to be a soldier my entire life. And so, I said, I'm going to go ahead and be a full-time soldier. And that, and I had served like in college and everything in the Army Reserve. But it was nice to finally decide to go as a full-time soldier. That is what I always wanted to be. That's what was modeled to me. And so I realized that police work wasn't really what my passion was. I wasn't a lousy police officer. I certainly wasn't the best one, but that wasn't my passion. That was more a vehicle as a young man to be able to support myself and my family. But like I say, my burning desire was to be a military officer. So when I signed up for the military, I actually had my college degree. And so I was like, hey, I can go right in and be a military officer. But, my father was like, nah, I think if you were an enlisted soldier, 1, I'd respect you more. And 2, I think that you'll learn a lot more from doing that. So, I enlisted and initially went through the basic training. And basic training was really eye-opening for me, because other than, a little bit of sports and having a coach yell at me, I never had somebody for 24 hours yell at me and tell me when to eat, when to get up, when to walk, when to sleep. And so I'll never forget the first day or second day of basic training while we were getting our initial issue. You're running around, they've got you scared, they're yelling at you, and they're piling all of this gear. And I kind of just stopped and, kind of lipped like, what is going on here? And there was a drill sergeant from across the way. He comes running over there, and his smoky hat hits me in the forehead, and he says, I'm going to effing kill you. And so I was sitting there, and I could actually feel myself about to come apart, and I'm thinking, this guy just told me he's going to kill me. After all of that, I really realized that once basic training's over, that the Army is like any other job or any other occupation. And so in doing so, I really came to like it, because that is what I really aspired to do. And the good thing about the Army is they never let you go stagnant. The military, I should say, but my experience was the Army, because you know, whether you like it or not, every few years you're going to get a new assignment and possibly a new job. Well, my career has taken me to Germany, Panama, exercises in like Somalia and Bosnia, and then you know, glorious places like Afghanistan, and then a lot of places stateside that I was stationed in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm stationed in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I was, you know, I've been stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, which is now the former Fort Hood, Texas,
Yeah.
and just different places all around the U.S. And the neat thing about it was it gave me an opportunity to see other places that you could live, and different styles of people and different ways of talking and different ways of expressing themselves. Because you know, all of my upbringing was in Southern California, which I thought was the world. But then when I actually got out to see the world, I realized that there's a whole lot more than Southern California. It's funny, you know, with a country as big as ours, there is a varying way of preparing, and there's some spots where you can get certain items and other spots you can't. So, you know, that's really something about the varying degrees of living styles within the United States. Because you know, the perspective of maybe a guy shoveling snow in the Midwest versus a guy sitting out on the beach or you know, or sitting in traffic in Los Angeles is kind of two different things. And I think where you grew up or where you end up living definitely impacts your attitude. Because you know, and I'm not picking on New Yorkers, but I always tell people, how would you feel if it's so crowded that you actually have a traffic jam on the sidewalk in New York City? So you know, definitely your perspective is different when you're around millions of people versus you know, there's some communities here in Virginia, as you get out into the rural areas, where there's maybe 2,000, there's cities of 2,000 people. I will say that, you know, varied assignments and working as hard as I could every day to be the best of whatever rank I was at that time, and understanding that there was another rank to go. But each time that I worked at whatever rank, captain or major, I was just, hey, I'm going to be the best captain I can be today, or the best major that I can be, and then the rest will hopefully take care of itself. Now, I will tell you that no matter how good and competent you are, and I think the promotion system is fairly fairly mitigated throughout the Army, it does also take some luck in that, being with the right mentors at the right time to get you to the right level. So there is an element of luck, whether people really want to adhere or acknowledge that or not. I was an aide de camp for a Major General, John Scott, and he was really influential in my career because I was his aide de camp when I was like a senior first lieutenant and you know, ultimately a captain, and that worked out a lot. And then when I really got out into the trenches of the Army and working command assignments and working other varied assignments, there was a Colonel Doug Belk who took me under his wing, and we actually ended up serving together a couple of times, and he really gave me a great perspective. So I give him also quite a bit of credit for the mentorship, because he would give me things to think about, and it would guide me to the next step that I needed to take. And it was, his method was systematic, but at the time I didn't see it as that way, and I think that was good because it allowed me to go into each assignment feeling like it was just a new experience rather than this is what I got to do to get there. For me, I think my most defining moment in the military, believe it or not, was when I achieved the rank of major, because that puts you into your first rung of being a field grade officer. And for me, that was huge. I my goal was, oh man, if I could ever make major, that would be great. And then, later on, lieutenant colonel and full colonel came, but major was just a milestone. And when I look back to me, that was promotion wise, that was my favorite promotion. And the best part about that is, my father had passed, but my mother was alive, and that was the last promotion that she was actually at. And because she didn't make it to my promotion for lieutenant colonel, and then she had passed by the time I made full colonel. So she didn't attend in person, but I'm sure she was watching from above. Arguably, full colonels and generals would probably laugh, but it's true. Arguably, full colonels run the Army because we basically give the generals the guidance so that they can make mission-oriented and command decisions. So that really is a true thing. And to be a full colonel, there's such a low percentage, only about 1.45 people. 1.45%, I'm sorry, of the Army makes full colonel. So that is really it's really quite a feat, and and they treat you accordingly. That's why there's so much privilege as a colonel, a full colonel. A lot of people don't understand that. I was fortunate enough to make full colonel, and that was higher than I ever expected. That was 2 ranks higher than I expected I'd ever get. And so, I'm thankful for that rather than, thinking about what could have been, because I see so many people leave the Army and they're sad or they're bitter about what has happened. And I decided that I wasn't going to let that define me, that I was going to be proud of the things that I did accomplish in the Army, and that I was just going to love it. And I do. I still to this day not so much miss the work, but I do miss the people. So it's kind of twofold. And my first wife I actually had known since 3rd grade, and then we just we got married young, and so there were challenges to that. I mean, I think both of us nice people, but I think that we weren't the right match. However, we did have 2 children. We've got Corinne, who was our oldest child, and Anthony the second, which is our son. He's the second child we had, and so she and I were married just short of 17 years, and then we finally decided that it was probably best for us and the children to part ways, so we did that, and then I ended up, being about 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years, just kind of floundering and just not really necessarily focused on, a life partner. And then all of a sudden, Julie and I ended up meeting online just by chance, and it wasn't like to meet online for dating. It was just a Christian website where we would just talk and share scripture, and this went on for 2+ years, and then we decided there was one time about probably a year and a half into us talking over the internet. I happened to be in the vicinity of where she lived. I was in Arizona on an Army job. And so she came and met with me at the airport before I was going to leave, and we just kind of met. And at the time we kind of met, I think both of us were like, it's not really chemistry, but hey, we can be friends. And so then fast forward down the road, I end up getting stationed in St. Louis. Simultaneously, she got stationed in Reston, which is just north of here by the District of Columbia. And so one weekend she was bored, I was bored, and it was just kind of like, hey, would you like to come over and visit? So I went over to visit, and we went out to dinner. We had sushi, and we had a nice evening, like dancing in Reston Town Center, or I don't know, I was stepping on her feet or whatever it was, but that was dancing, I guess. And uh, had a nice weekend. You know, I went to visit her, and after that, it just became. It just kind of clicked, I guess would be the best way to say that. You know, I think our relationship was kind of unique, the way that it developed, and really, um, I I think at the time when we just met online and started talking, really meeting that way and dating was not like totally in vogue. There were a few companies maybe that had things like that, but that wasn't our intent. So our meeting was kind of unique. Um, but I think the thing that attracted me most to Julie was I can tell, like, from her upbringing, she's very honest, she's very trustworthy, and so you could and very intelligent. And so from those things, um, those are all qualities that that I think anybody could embrace. And with ours, it just grew into, at least from my perspective, a love story. I enjoy pretty much doing anything with her, but I do enjoy traveling with her, and I think I really enjoyed just recently. We went on a cruise to Alaska, and it was just she and I, and we'd always on trips. There's always been somebody else around, so that was really unique, and it was really nice that we got that those moments together. And in my retirement years now, I'm hoping we get more of those moments, because those are what life is worth living. So the Alaska cruise, though, that's a key moment. And then probably the other key moment was standing at my retirement and then reflecting back and realizing what a pillar and what she has meant to me in terms of staying successful and supporting me. Those are the things that are just absolute
to that book.
So, growing up, I always used to watch Dodgers games or Angels games, and I would see these kids on the field, and I'd be like, man, they'd be running up to the plate and getting a bat, and I'd say, I want to do that. I want to be on the field with players and do that. And so I actually had my coach in like when I was 13, 14 years old, and he happened to be a scout for the Angels. And so, although he didn't have a particular end to helping me get the job, he did say, hey, usually I think the equipment men for the Angels kind of hire the bat boys. So I sought out that that's what I was going to do. And I just literally wrote 30 plus letters to the Angels, kept writing them different letters, sending them accomplishments of things that I did, and there was a lot of feeling rejected, because I wrote them a letter and nothing. And then I wrote them, more letters, and there was nothing. And then finally I did get sort of a cursory letter back that said, hey, hey, we'll keep your stuff on file if anything ever happens. But it was, even at that age, I was kind of like, this is really just kind of probably something standard that they tell people. And so there was a lot of dejection, but again, like I said, my mom was kind of both feet in there. And so my mom was kind of one of those people that was like, okay, so you'll write them every week until you hear something else. And, my parents would provide stamps, and I think at that time it was 11 or 12 cents to mail a stamp, or to mail a letter. That was the cost of a stamp. So, but my parents were, that was the way they were. If we were going to do something, we were going to put on the full court press. And finally, after, 32 letters, they said, hey, on spring training day, when we get there on that day, show up and we'll give you a tryout and see how you do. I've left a good impression, but hey, I don't have any openings, but maybe next year. So about halfway through that season, which was 1977, the visiting clubhouse manager, who was David Howells, called me up and says, hey, you want to come down and be a substitute? We got one of the bad boys that's going to be gone for a while. And so I did that, and basically ended up subbing the rest of that 77 season. And then in 1978, there was an opening, and I got hired, and then I was a bat boy from 1978 until really the end of the 1980 season, because the entire 1981 season I was promoted to assistant equipment manager, and so that was really just a milestone kind of thing. And then when I really just didn't have time to do the job anymore due to college, I walked away from it, but I walked away with some good memories, and I got some experiences and got to see some places that I never would have been able to do. So it was really a foundation. So how the book came about is, Julie and I would talk about me being a bat boy and how the story went, and she had been a teacher for years, and so she just, she always wanted to write a book that would inspire children. And she says, I've been thinking about a book that would inspire children, and, your story is one that could do that. And so basically, I dictated the story to her, and she took off and ran with it. I mean, she composed it, and then had it edited. She arranged to have it illustrated. She arranged to have it bound and printed and all of that. But one of the unique things about this book, which really makes it special, is we have a Chinese national daughter. Yeah. And her name is affectionately, her name that she adopted coming here in the United States is Jo. Her real name is Raji, but her given name. But she just a very talented artist. And basically we became sort of a unofficial foster family to her, because she was in a girls' boarding school, and during school breaks she'd come to our house and stay with us because Julie had developed a relationship with the school. And so Jo, it's really special that she, being a talented artist, was able to illustrate this book, and everybody that looks at the illustrations of this book just cannot believe the quality of her art. And since then, she's now started her own professional artistry or art business, and that's what she does. But it's just really special that Jo illustrated that book, because she's a part of our life. And so we're now just supporting, being a support network for her as she forges into her dream of being an artist. So we're just really proud of that. So really, although it's my story and I'm a co-author, really it's her effort, and I'm really proud of what it's become, because it's touched a lot of children, and it's delivered that message of following your dreams. So that was really what the intent was. As anybody that writes a book, generally, unless it's a bestseller, you don't write a book to make money, because but you do write a book because it's you want to leave a legacy, and you want to tell your story, and ours was for our kids and grandkids. And so all of the reasons that Julie wanted to produce a book resonated with me as well, and that's really what it is it's just a story to inspire youths to follow their dreams and stay focused, and don't let anything that has nothing to do with your dreams get in the way of you achieving your dreams.